So this week's Parshas Vayishlach. We start out with Yaakov sending messengers to his brother Esau, letting him know he was coming back from Padan Aram, and knowing that he seeks peace with Esau. And the message was sent with a huge bribe, lots and lots and lots of cattle, distributed in multiple groups, so that they stretched as far as the eye could see to impress Esau with the abundance of Yaakov's wealth, and that he was giving it to Esau freely. And then Yaakov gets to Eretz Israel, and he divides his household into two camps, with the thought that if one camp is destroyed, the other camp will survive. The Chachamim of the Gemara saw great significance in this interaction between Yaakov and Esau. The Gemara reports that the Chachamim, when they had to interact with Rome, would study this section of the Gemara, of the Torah, in detail, to see how they should act with Rome. In the worldview of the Gemara, Esau, or Edom, is synonymous with Rome. Esau's descendants, Edom, are identified with Romans, and because of the principle of Masa Avos Simon Labanim, that the activities of the Avos, the forefathers, are assigned for those of the children, they felt very strongly that they should study how Yaakov dealt with Esau, the progenitor of Rome. It's an interesting thing. See, what did Yaakov do? Yaakov sent Esau a bribe, which was an attempt to make peace with Esau. He prayed and he split his camp. So Gemara learns from this that how the Jewish nation should act when they're dealing with people who are potentially their enemies. The first thing you're supposed to do is, like Yaakov, attempt to make peace. The next thing you're supposed to do is daven. Maybe you should daven first and then try to make peace. Either way. And then you should be ready to fight should peace and prayer not work. And we can see a parallel to this in Sefer Dvarim, where we have the halachos of how the Jews are supposed to deal with deal with Canaanite enemy cities. The Torah there in Dvarim commands us that you should offer peace to an enemy city, and if they accept, you are not permitted to make peace with them. You maintain the terms of your treaty, not to abuse them too much. But if the city that you offer peace to fails to accept a peace treaty or fails to honor it, then you're to annihilate everything that breathes in the city. This is exactly what the Pasuk says. So we see that's the Torah's way for the Jews to deal with their enemies. You try to make peace, you daven, and then you're ready to fight them when you have to. And if you have to fight them, you fight them to win. Kill every last one of them. So that's the Masa Avos Simon Labanim here of Yaakov Avinu, and how he dealt with the archetype of all of our enemies throughout history is Esau, and he dealt with Esau in that way. And this is a lesson that we should learn from for nowadays, is peace is very well and good, but there is a time when you need to recognize that trying to make peace is futile, and that there is only remaining answer is that you need to fight for what is proper, right, and the only way to attain peace is the peace of victory, which we can attain through davening and regain the help of Hashem with it. That being said, there's my jingoistic, warlike statement for today. Let's consider some other events in this week's Parsha. Yaakov fights the angel in his camp. He had gone back to look for some stuff he left behind, some jars. And he encounters an individual, and he and the individual fight until dawn. And during the fight, Yaakov's hip is dislocated. And Yaakov, though, wins, and he pins the stranger, and he asks him for his name. And the stranger says, "Why do you want to know my name? My name is not important." I says, "But yours is." I says, "Your name is not going to be just Yaakov anymore, but you're going to be called Yisrael, because you have fought with messenger of God and won." And then the angel returns to heaven. So, and then we have the curious statement that therefore the Jewish people don't eat the gid hanashe, which is the sciatic nerve that runs down the leg, because Yaakov was wounded in the hip and it damaged his nerve. It's a very peculiar sort of thing. We say if the angel had bonked Yaakov over the head, would we not eat heads? Perhaps. I don't know. Maybe. But for whatever reason, this is given as the source of the prohibition on the gid hanashe, the nerves in the back legs of the animal. And to this day, Jews don't eat that. There is the misconception, it's common amongst many Jewish people, that the hindquarters portion of the animal is not kosher, period. This is not true. It's the gid hanashe and certain forbidden fats that are found primarily in the back part of the animal that are not allowed to be eaten. But there is a process called nikur, which you are allowed to remove the fats and the nerves that are not permitted, and then you are allowed to eat any portion of the hindquarter of the animal. Nikur requires a great deal of skill, special training. Not every shochet, not every butcher is qualified to perform this. Nikur was relatively common in Europe up until the 19th century. And in America, it persisted until early part of the 20th century. As the Jewish world got more prosperous, and the demand for meat around the world became higher, it became more profitable just to sell the hindquarters to non-Jews rather than go through the lengthy and fiddly process of nikur. And so nowadays in America, you will very, very rarely find nikurim, people who can do this process. They still exist in Israel. There are a few people, and a few meat processes in the United States where the process of nikur is still done on the meat. And that's why no T-bone steaks, you don't find them too often in kosher restaurants, though the possibility does exist. And you can certainly buy them, and there are certainly a few recognizable places that will do it. Most of the mainstream hechsher will not, in the United States, will not recognize, will not authorize their meat processes to do nikur, but hey, you can do it if you want, and you can be had. The Orach Chaim gives, back to the prohibition on the gid, gives an unusual explanation involving Kabbalistic concepts. I don't know that I buy that. but it's an interesting idea. It's holistic. That excuse me. But that the angel is said to have been the guardian angel representing Esau, and that his contact with the the thigh area, where sort of contaminated the thigh, and has with a klipa, a shell. It's a demonic power. Whatever it is, we don't eat the Gid Hanasha because of this. And let's take another instance. Well, let's consider for a moment, why is Yaakov so keen on knowing his name? It is said in many sources that angels don't have permanent names, that their names are assigned to them based on the mission and the task that they're performing. And so presumably Yaakov knew this, and his interest in a name was to know so that he could know the nature of this particular angel's mission. This is mentioned by the Or Chaim and many other sources. Angels, I'd like to emphasize that in traditional Jewish thought, angels have no independent power. They're not like in Christianity, where the angels are free will and power to fall and become evil and all that kind of stuff. In Judaism, this is not the case. Angels have no independent existence. They are aspects of the divine sent to manifest in the physical world and perform specific tasks, and they have no independent existence of their own. And that's the meaning of the name that's assigned to an angel, indicates what function it is performing in the divine order. So Yaakov's interest in knowing the name of the angel is to find out what mission this angel was on. The angel doesn't share that with him, and Yaakov doesn't find out in the end. And then we have another story in there. Is we have Reuven, after Leah dies. Reuven is said to have slept with Bilhah, which is one of Yaakov's other wives. He says he went with Bilhah, and Yaakov heard, and then the story ends, and we don't hear anything about it. Immediately, the next thing is the genealogy of Yaakov, and says that Reuven is Yaakov's firstborn. So, predictably, the Mepharshim are really bent out of shape by the implication that Reuven would have slept with one of his father's wives, and are horrified by the notion that he actually did that. And most of the Mepharshim, this goes back to the Medrash and the Gemara, and explain that what Reuven did was when not Leah, when Rachel died. Going back, Reuven, the Mepharshim, the Medrash explains that when Rachel, who was Yaakov's favorite wife, died, Yaakov moved his household regular bed into to be in Bilhah's household rather than Leah's household. So Reuven was insulted for the sake of his mother's honor. His mother was a senior wife, Bilhah was a concubine. And so the Medrash says that Reuven took the Yaakov's bed and moved it from Bilhah's household tent to Leah's. And in this case, he's considered as he defiled Bilhah's house, because as an insult to Bilhah that he moved a bed away. And Yaakov had chosen that after Rachel's death, that he wanted to make his primary wife Bilhah, and Reuven was insulted on behalf of his mother, and by rearranging the furniture, which he had no right to do, that is a grievous insult to both his father and to Bilhah. And The Torah therefore considers as if he actually violated her. But it doesn't say what Yaakov did afterward. It just says that Yaakov heard. And so whatever it was is a story. It's why Medrash fills in what Yaakov heard and what Yaakov did. And so this is the explanation why Reuven lost the privileges of the firstborn. Shimon and Levi were next in line. Shimon and Levi lost their rights to the primogeniture, the primacy among the 12 sons of Yaakov, because of their attack on Shechem against the will of their father. And then, so the next one in line was Yehuda, who became the preeminent tribe. So this is where they explain that. So, myself was similar. So that's what we have to say. Lots of little bits and pieces on Parshas Vayishlach, and next week we'll settle down and see Yosef start causing trouble and get sold to Egypt, and Yehuda going off and doing his thing with the Canaanites. Have a good Shabbos.